What's going on, guys? The Crypto Lark here. Today I was very lucky to get the chance to sit down with Ethan Fast. He is part of the team and one of the co-founders creating a very exciting decentralized exchange called NEX. We're going to get into all the details of that interview after a quick shout out to everyone who has been hitting that like button, and of course everybody who has been subscribing to the channel. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you hit that button down below to stay up to date with all of the latest in the crypto space. Furthermore, this is of course not professional financial advice. This is just a dude talking about cryptocurrencies on the internet, guys. Furthermore, this is an ICO. Please understand that there is always a certain amount of inherent risk in investing in any ICO. Please do your own due diligence before investing your own money, guys. Furthermore, this is not a sponsored review. This is just a project that I think you guys should have on your radar. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show, everybody. Super excited to have with me today Ethan Fast. He's the co-founder and developer of NEX, co-founder of City of Zion, the creator of everyone's favorite, the Neon Wallet, and he's doing his PhD over at Stanford in Artificial Intelligence. Welcome.
Thanks, Lark. It's great to be here.
Now, I want to jump right into what you're talking about in your PhD. You're talking about AI and how everything kind of comes together. Can you give us a quick rundown on that? Because that's very interesting.
Sure. So I'm finishing up my PhD very soon now. It's in human-computer interaction and artificial intelligence, two subfields of computer science. And really, these areas have a lot of relation to the blockchain. In particular, human-computer interaction kind of thinks about how people interact with computers at a kind of fundamental way. And we're bringing a lot of these lessons into, I think, the design and usability of NEX, right? Sort of this broad idea of, decentralization, blockchains, these are great, but they're not really here for mainstream users yet. So, how can we create more usable interfaces, interfaces that actually work for more people there?
Very, very interesting. Now, DEXs are just like the trend in 2018, to such an extent. Why are DEXs important?
Yeah, so a decentralized exchange is really designed to give people who want to trade cryptocurrency sort of more control over their funds, right? So if you think about what happens in a centralized exchange, you send your assets to the exchange, it controls them, it matches them, and then at some later time you can withdraw. So the difference with a decentralized exchange is that the user controls their assets at every stage of the process, and so typically relies on a smart contract which they can inspect to do the matching. And what this means is that they know exactly what the matching behavior is going to look like. They control their funds until the moment that they're transferred to someone else. And the smart contract is sort of what's doing that delegation. So the big difference with NEX is that, if you think about how all of these decentralized exchanges today work, they rely on the blockchain, they rely on the smart contracts, and these things are just not very performant. If you want the kinds of really fast trades, really fast APIs that we get in the centralized exchanges. So just to sort of take an example, EtherDelta, right? It's fully decentralized, but the performance it's not quite there for most users, and it's certainly not there for high performance bot APIs and things like this. So with NEX, we want to take these design goals and create a decentralized exchange that can support that kind of performance. And the way we're doing this is through an off-chain matching engine. So effectively what happens here is, the users submit their orders to the off-chain matching engine. The engine is actually what does the logic that performs the matching, and then the settlement still happens on-chain through a smart contract. So we can enable the high performance and scalability of the centralized exchanges while giving the users the benefits of fully controlling their funds at all times, and then having the smart contract do the settlement for them.
Mm-hmm. Really, really interesting. Now, obviously, that off-chain matching engine is a really interesting innovation, I think, actually, in the space here when it comes down to it. But when another thing that I thought was really interesting is actually all the extra features that NEX is bringing in, the limit orders and stuff like that. And can you tell us why that is really interesting and innovational in the space, particularly in relation to DEXs?
Yeah, so this is exactly the kind of thing that the off-chain matching engine enables. So if you think about how the current decentralized exchanges typically operate today, they kind of do this one-to-one matching, right? So a user submits like, I want to trade 10 units of X for Y, and then another one says like, I want to trade 20 units of Y to X, and then you do an exact match with those orders. So what a limit order allows you to do is sort of, basically fulfill any order, under or over, a certain price. And why this is difficult in smart contracts today is that it's pretty complex logic to, take an order like that, match it against all existing possible orders, and then fulfill the order. So the smart contract to do all of that, it's just a pretty intense computation. It's not very good for the chain scalability. But with NEX, because we have the off-chain matching engine, we can do that more complex logic on the off-chain engine, which is just any high-performance server, and then have the smart contract still do the settlement, right? So we can break that limit order down into the set of matches it would achieve, and then settle all of those on the chain. So it allows you to get that kind of performance, and also get stability, right? Because I think most people using exchanges, right, are familiar with things like limit orders, right? They expect to be able to place those kinds of orders. So that kind of thing is important. As far as the margin orders go, that's a little further down the line, but it operates under the same kinds of principles, right? So, because we have the off-chain engine, we can support the same kind of margin order style functionality, right? It's just more complicated.
Really, really interesting stuff. It's when you look at the current DEX space, basically, so these decentralized exchanges, like I said, Ether Delta leaves a lot to be desired from a lot of people. But if we look at some of the other ones, there are some really exciting projects that are coming up. I know a lot of people are very excited about, Loopring and what that's offering. A lot of people are very excited about, Kyber Network, for example, as well. And there's some others that are kind of working in the space already. We could look at BarterDex as an example, or BlockNet. Those guys are kind of already doing, but haven't really got the traction. So, when we look at the competition, where do you see Nex's competition being?
Yeah, so I would say that most of the examples you raised there are trying to do the on-chain computation. So sort of more the traditional DEX approach, which again, Nex is going to be very different than in terms of the performance that it offers. The other kind of thread I see there is a lot of those are more protocol oriented. So Loopring, for example, is kind of a protocol based on smart contracts on currently the Ethereum blockchain to enable these complex ring matches or whatever. Similarly, 0x, also a protocol. You can build things like an off-chain matching engine on top of those protocols. So there's some potential for integration with those protocols, if we wanted, and other projects may be doing that as well. But those are just kind of different things. In terms of the other work in the space, there are a few off-chain matching engine style projects that I know of, and I think there, you sort of our big point of differentiation, I think, is going to be really this focus on the user-centered design and the usability. And this is one reason we have, basically two full-time designers on board who've done, great work for City of Zion, are doing great work for NEX. And we have that in sort of intense focus into everything that we're building, sort of focusing on, how the user experience feels and looks. And I think that's somewhat uncommon in this space and will set us apart.
Very, very interesting. Now, obviously, user interfaces, obviously, super important. And really, I think that's what a lot of the space is lacking, is good user interface, good usability even. And I think the off-chain, of course, matching will hopefully give us that. Now, how's your prototype development going?
Oh, it's going really well. So we're pretty far along with some of the wallet features that Nex is going to provide. We've done some work on the matching engine. And actually, something really exciting that we'll be sharing is a demo of some of the Nex functionality at the Neo DevCon. So if you are at the Neo DevCon, you'll obviously be able to see that there. If you're not, keep an eye out on our social media, because we'll probably be releasing more details about that there as well.
Very cool. If you're lucky enough to get a ticket to the Neo DevCon, definitely make sure you get along to that. I know it's a very, very hot event coming up.
Yeah,
So
to get there.
very, very cool.
Yeah, we'll also be giving a talk there as well. So.
Oh, awesome. Even better. Even better. Yeah, so definitely, if anyone's out there and you have a ticket to go to the Neo DevCon, make sure you get out there and go. That's really cool. Now, one thing that I thought was super exciting, super interesting about the Next project, not of course that's just the decentralized exchange, because that's really exciting. Everybody loves decentralized exchanges. Obviously, the problem with centralized exchanges, we can go on for days about them. But staking rewards for Next. Can you explain how this is going to work?
Yeah, so this is something we're really excited about. It basically gives holders of the Next token a share of the fees that the Next exchange collects. So effectively, you will take your Next tokens, you can stake them in a smart contract, And then depending upon sort of how long you decide to stake them for, you'll get a greater proportion of the fees that NEX generates. So we don't have exact numbers out there right now, but you can expect something in the range of 50 to 75%. And the basic idea is that sort of the longer you agree to commit to stake your tokens, to basically lock them in the smart contract, the higher the percent of fee share that you get. So this sort of has two benefits for people. One, it sort of takes a lot of tokens off the market as people want to claim their fees. And then, two, while you're doing that, if you are someone who took it off the market, you're getting a higher portion of the fees that Nex is generating.
Wow, that's really interesting. I have this feeling that it's going to be really, really hard to find Next tokens on the market.
Yeah.
I imagine most people will have those locked up. And of course, the really interesting thing to hear is you're not getting paid out in Next. Well, I guess you might get paid out in Next tokens if people are exchanging Next to Neo, for
Yeah.
example. You get paid out in Next, but you actually get paid out in the assets that are being traded. So if today is a really hot day for trading Neo and Red Pulse, for example, that's what you're going to receive. As your staking rewards. So that's pretty cool.
That's right. And that also kind of serves as an index, right? So if you are holding a NEX token and NEX is trading, NEX tokens, it's trading any of the NEO assets, the Net5 assets, it's trading any of the Ethereum tokens or Bitcoin, etc. Any of those things, you're getting a small portion of them. So effectively, by holding NEX, it's sort of an index into the broad crypto market as a whole.
Which is, of course, very cool. Now, I wanted to wind that back a little bit to what you said there, because it is just starting off with the NEP5 standard token, so that is NEO-based tokens. When do we see Ethereum tokens coming in? When do we see Bitcoin? Is there plans for any others, Nexus or Cardano or NEM or any of that stuff?
Yeah, yeah. So if you look at our current roadmap, we currently have we basically say we'll support Ethereum by the end of the year, this year. But given what I know about the development and how things are going, I think you can expect to see that much sooner. So I would say that shortly after we have a real working release of the matching engine, you can expect to see both Net5 and the Ethereum tokens, which should provide a lot because there's more Net5s coming out every day for Neo, and obviously there's plenty of Ethereum ERC20 tokens out there, many of which are really popular. So in terms of the other chains like Bitcoin, for example, you sort of have a dichotomy here. So one is all of the chains out there that support smart contracts. Any of those can be integrated into the same kind of basically architecture that we're proposing for Neo and eventually for Ethereum, where you effectively have the matching engine communicating with a smart contract on the chain that does the settlement. So all of those, all it takes is writing a smart contract on that chain, and then you basically have NEX support for those platforms. With others, like Bitcoin, that don't support smart contracts natively, you need to do a little bit more work, but we have some ideas there as well, and it's possible you can have a sort of more centralized component to support the Bitcoin trades that we're looking into. But more on that, obviously, in the future. I think people can expect Neo and Ethereum at least in a relatively short timeline.
Which, for obviously for Neo supporters, covers everything they need, and for
Yes.
Ethereum supporters will cover a lot of the other projects and tokens out there. Currently Ethereum absolutely dominates the space without a doubt as far as the volume of projects they cover. So that is very cool indeed. Now, there's another feature here which I know there's not a lot of details about yet, but you can give us, I guess, the details that you do have at the moment, and that is decentralized banking. That is in the roadmap for the future. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So I just say this is a kind of long-term vision for Nex. So it's something that'll be coming in the future, sort of after we've established the main work on the sort of exchange component. But it really underlies everything we're thinking about. And what it is this idea of sort of taking these metaphors from the traditional banking world, sort of things like savings accounts or index funds or different kinds of levels of security for your accounts, and translating those to the blockchain. So in everything that we build for Nex and in the ways that people interact with Nex, we're sort of thinking ahead to the future of how they might also interact with these other kinds of things. And I think this is just really important for the sort of blockchain industry as a whole to think about. Because if you think about the core value here to this technology, it's sort of an enabler or possibly replacer of some of these institutions and some of these existing financial technologies. So we definitely have our eye on that, and we'll be moving forward with that sort of, both now, but sort of, especially, after we have our initial infrastructure up for the exchange.
Very, very interesting things. It's certainly a lot to look forward to with Next. I think this project has got so much attention, because it's being developed by by you guys, by the city of Zion, and I think that's really exciting in of itself. But it's a great project as well. Now, obviously, the ICO space recently has been a crap show, we could say. There's so many
Yeah.
ICOs where whales come in, they buy all the tokens in 30 seconds, or the sale sells out in 5 minutes, and most people who want to get it can't participate, or you send your money and it's held in gosh knows where for how many days because you couldn't participate in the sale, and all these problems. What are you guys going to do to, set the gold standard for ICOs? Because everyone's watching, everyone's like, this is the city of Zion, this is going to be good, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
what are you guys trying to do?
Well, you basically took the words out of my mouth in that we are effectively trying to create sort of the approach for doing token sales, at least on Neo, because as you say, we've seen a lot of sales that just haven't gone maybe as well as people would like, and that happens for a lot of reasons. So something in particular we're focusing on is this idea of verification. So if the sale is overfunded or is not going on for some other reason, we can just automatically reject a transaction. You don't have to wait for these manual refunds. Another thing we're focusing on, and this is kind of inspired by, I think, one good aspect of the Red Pulse sale was this sort of like staged sale environment. So, effectively enabling the maximum number of people to participate in the sale, while then opening up, further contributions in a second stage, if necessary, if the sale hasn't been sold out. So these are good ideas that we will sort of encapsulate in a smart contract that then hopefully others can take and use for their own projects. So we avoid some of these interesting issues that have cropped up lately with some of these sales.
Yeah, that's really good. Just like you said, I can't believe we're still doing manual refunds
I
on
know.
on these. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's great. I really, we're looking forward anxiously to see, that standard be set, because this is what needs to happen moving forward with sales. This
Yeah.
Wild West atmosphere's got to die down a little bit.
And
Maybe,
this is, I
go
think,
ahead.
it just sort of speaks to another goal we have at Next, which is really to give back, sort of especially to the Neo community, right? I mean, so because we're all sort of co-founders as well of City of Zion, we do a lot of work there, obviously, and to the extent that what we can do with Next sort of benefits the broader ecosystem, we will be pushing on that like completely. So, I think in the future you can expect to see more and more of those kinds of initiatives coming out of Next as well.
Very, very interesting. Now, everybody wants to know, what are the details of the sale? How many tokens are there be? How much is it going to cost? Which people are excluded from the sale? What have you got for us so far?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm going to disappoint people and not give too many new pieces of information here. You can still expect the sale in quarter 1. That's still our plan of this year. We have announced that I believe we have 50 million tokens, and it's going to be roughly $1 a token in terms of the sort of sale price. So given how much is available for the public, which is 25 million tokens, that's sort of a public fundraising of 25 million. So we also we have no private sale. This is a question we get in the email endlessly. Do you have a pre-sale? Do you have a private sale? We do not. So you can feel free not to ask that question. And also we had a limited number of strategic investors, and no one who was in that category got any kind of discount on the sale as well. So we're trying to set a sort of standard for how we think sales should be run.
Very, very cool. And so if anybody out there wants to really find out when the details are coming out and keep, tabs on what's going on with the token sale, what's the best way they can kind of get in touch and keep an eye on the sale?
Yeah, so our main point of access here is Twitter. So just follow us at Neon Exchange on Twitter. We also do have a Medium account, which you can follow similarly. You can also take a look at the Reddit. At the Neo Reddit, I'm sure you'll see any interesting piece of news will be there as well. But mainly the Twitter is where we're going to be making the announcements, at least in the short term. There's also, I think, a community managed Telegram that you can go into, but we're not managing it ourselves. So, that I have limited details about.
Mm-hmm. Official Avenue. Go check the Twitter guys. They'll keep you up to date when the sale is, what the exact details with the staged caps and all these things will be. So, and of course, there'll be an update on any excluded peoples um, that may be. Of course, as you
Yeah.
guys are trying to get as many people in as possible, but there are some legal realities, unfortunately, that I imagine will come into play. But those details come out later, guys. They can't talk about it yet, I guess. But very, very, very interesting. Ethan, I think we've covered some really great points here about the project, and anyone who kind of doesn't know about NEX yet now has some great information about it. So thank you so much for taking your time to sit down today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Lark. It's been great.
Thank you.